When I was a new reseller just starting out, I walked into my very first thrift store on the hunt for anything profitable. Back then, I was sourcing based off of vibes and feelings. I remember scrolling through eBay sold listings just to see how many times a day the item sold to feel it out to see if it was a good pickup or not. I'd get excited buying mall brands and designer labels for really cheap, thinking, I'm gonna make a bunch of money off of this. I would rush home, list everything, and then nothing. Weeks would go by and things just sat. Not many sales. Not a lot of traction. I would wonder if something was wrong with my store, like if it was like turned off or something, questioning like, why am I not getting any sales? So then I turned to YouTube to see what other resellers were putting on their stores. But it felt like an Easter egg hunt to me. If I did find the brands that they were saying to pick up, I would put it on my store and they would still sit. Not a lot of them were moving still. I was frustrated. I felt like I was blindly fumbling around through the thrift stores, clueless on what to pick up, feeling totally stuck. Then one day, when researching, I discovered a golden nugget of information, and it changed everything. Suddenly, I could see what items would be home runs and which ones would be sleepers, no matter the brand or how cheap I could get them. I stopped thrifting based off of feelings, and I started sourcing with cold, hard facts. And yeah, it was hard at first. It was much harder. I'd walk out of the thrift stores completely empty-handed, whereas before I used to be rolling out a cart sky high full of products. I didn't get a dopamine hit at the checkout anymore. Now I get my dopamine hit from my phone blowing up with cha-chings. It did become harder to find good items, but it became way easier to sell them once I did. My confidence grew and my sales grew. And from that point on, my reselling career took off. From there, my store was turning over quarter after quarter. 600 listings were going up and 600 orders were going out every 90 days. And I just kept climbing. Today, I'm listing 1,600 items with over 1,800 orders going out every 90 days. I rose up in the ranks so much that now I'm sitting at eBay's top 0.01% eBay sellers in America. And the tool that got me here, most resellers overlook it or ignore it altogether. So what's the secret? You might be scanning the background, trying to see what I sell. You might be asking yourself, is it jeans? I do sell a lot of jeans, but it's not that. I wish it was that simple to just pick like the right category and then boom, you're successful. That would have made my reselling career way easier if it was just based off of a category. And you might be asking yourself, is it because you niched down to selling just one category? And it's not that either. Niching does help, but it does work with everything stores as well. What made the difference from where I started to the success I have today is not a product. It was a concept, a metric, a math equation, and that tool is called sell-through rate. Now, maybe you've heard of sell-through rate and you might be using it already, but I challenge you to stick with me. I'll show you how I use it every day, and I'll share a pro tip that I use that you can start implementing in your store today to start changing the trajectory of your store. And if you've never heard of sell-through rate, then you're in the right place. This is the foundation. So let's dig into it. So sell-through rate. Sell-through rate, or STR for short, is in the reselling world a snapshot of the supply and demand within a given amount of time. On eBay, we typically work within the time period of 90 days because that is what eBay represents in their sold listings, is a 90-day time period. So sell-through rate is the metric to see how much of the available supply sells within a given time period. It's a snapshot of the supply and demand, and it can also help us estimate about how long it might take for our item to sell given the current conditions. So, what does sell-through rate actually solve? Well, it answers the age-old question, what are good items to sell? It shows us which items are in demand. It shows us if the current market is overly saturated or not. It shows us if the market is stagnant or if it's very fast moving. It can help us competitively price our items based off of its sell-through rate. And if we invest our money into fast-selling markets, then we'll get our return on that investment much faster. So we will be running into fewer cash flow issues because we are getting our money back plus our profit much faster than if we waited much longer or if we got it back at all. And then because we are having more consistent sales, our confidence in our items will go up and the confidence in our store's performance will increase as well. Now, why is sell-through rate so helpful? It takes a very loose approach of sourcing and gives you structure and boundaries to make your sourcing go easier. It shows the proven track record of any given item. I like to view the sell-through rate track record of an item kind of like your normal investments, where you look at the performance of that stock before you invest your money into it to see what its track record is. And it shows you if it is a healthy market or an unhealthy market and about how quickly you can make a profit off of it. And then lastly, sell-through rate is very helpful because it helps you focus on proven inventory. So it takes the guessing out of sourcing and turns it into strategy. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the equation on how to calculate sell-through rate. And I'm going to keep this as simple as I can because I know we're not all math people. So I'm just going to do a foundational coverage on how to find sell-through rate of an item. The first step whenever it comes to finding the sell-through rate of an item, you want to search on eBay and find listings that are qualified and very similar, if not identical, to the item that you're trying to research. The more accurate of a data pool we're working with, the better, more accurate results we're going to be getting. So there are actually two ways to calculate sell-through rate. The first method is the more popular, the easier one, that's more simple. It's great for quickly doing some math while you're outsourcing without having to break out pen and paper. It's more of like a snapshot of checking the heat of the marketplace right then and there. Whereas method 2, it shows you the odds of your item selling within 90 days. However, we're using sell-through rate not only to see what the supply and demand is, to see if the market is moving or if it's saturated and stagnant. We're also using sell-through rate to determine how long it might take for our item to sell, given the current circumstances. And both methods actually come to the same result because we use the daily sales rate to estimate how long it'll take for our item to sell. Now we're going to be adding some numbers, so I promise it's going to be as simple as I can make it. For this example, say we are going to sell an RC car that we found at the thrift store. We figure out what the brand is and what the model is and if it's new or pre-owned and any other factors that may go into it. eBay pulls up the results and it says that there are 100 other ones that are just like ours currently active, and in the past 90 days 100 of them have sold. So with method 1, to quickly do some math at the thrift store, we would take the 100 sold divided by the 100 active and say that this item has a 100% sell-through rate, meaning on average 100% of the actives will sell within 90 days. Method 2 would actually take the 100 sold divided by the total pool of everything that is currently active and sold, and they would say 100 sold divided by 200 total by adding the active and solds together to say it has a 50% sell-through rate. And taking everything that has been listed and sold and everything that's currently listed into consideration, they're saying you have about a 50% chance for that item to sell. So there's two different methods. The method 1 is the more common, easy way that resellers use. It can determine how hot or not hot the market is right now, and it can also answer the question of about how long it might take for our item to sell given the market circumstances. And to be fair, I don't fully 100% understand method 2. I have learned method 1 and have used that, and it has gotten me this far, and I'm pretty pleased with the results. So I can speak more on method 1, and if other people are understanding method 2 and like they're experts with method 2, feel free to educate us on that. But Whenever I break down the math to answer the question, how long on average will it take for my item to sell? And it's not a guarantee, it's on average. What we take is the what has sold within 90 days, which is 100, and we say how many sell within a 90-day period each day, and it's at a rate of 1.11 sell per day. So then we take how many are active divided by that daily sales rate, and it gives us about a 90-day forecast for our item to sell. Granted, we are doing things correctly by titling well, pricing well, and all of that, and making sure our item isn't flawed and whatever. There's a lot of other variables that can go into moving the needle one way or the other with desirability. But for the most part, surface level, it's a good, easy way to calculate about on average how long we need to wait for our item to sell. The reason why method 1 is so popular is because whenever we say 100% in 90 days, it means that on average an item will sell within 90 days. So it gets us to the punchline much faster without having to break out pen and paper and do all the calculations. If something maybe had a 50% sell-through rate with using method 1, then what needs to happen for 100% of the items to sell? How long, in theory and on average, would it take? Well, to get to 100%, starting at 50%, we have to times it by 2. So 50% times 2 would equal 100%. So the 90-day time period that we're working with, we would also multiply it by 2, and we would get to the equation that it would take on average 180 days for that item to sell with a 50% sell-through rate. So it kills two birds with one stone. That's why method 1 is more popular. It's very math friendly, math user friendly, and method 2 can be way more accurate and give us a bigger picture of everything that's going on with the market. Like I said, method 1 hasn't steered me way off course in the slightest, which leads me into my disclaimer for sell-through rate. With that being said, my disclaimer when it comes to using the sell-through rate tool, no matter which way we're calculating it at the end of the day, it isn't perfect, but it is the best tool we have as resellers to forecast what is a good investment or not. The reason why it's not perfect is because there are times where you can narrow in the data pool too much or to be too broad, and you're not able to get an accurate read of the market. For example, in the clothing world, things like condition, color, size, the title, your photos, even your return policy or customer feedback, all of that will influence the desirability of your item, which then influences your item's sell-through rate. So both methods are not infallible, but they just help give us some structure. And something to remember is that while we're doing our calculations with the data we're looking at, that both sell-through rate methods calculate the bad and the good listings. Some listings are just dead in the water and they will never sell, and other listings are so perfect that they sell instantly. So it does take practice and some trial and error, and there is a learning curve whenever you're using this tool. But it is the only tool we have to give us any sort of guidance on what items are worth investing into or not. Again, the whole reason for using sell-through rate is to see if the market is overly saturated, if the market is stagnant, or if it's moving. And fast markets will always have a payoff versus the slow ones. So my dream for resellers would be to flip the narrative. Instead of being in front of your computer, needing to list thousands upon thousands of listings to get a small return on your investment, let's get accurate. Let's prove that everything we list does sell. Let's get our investment and profit back within months without having to wait years. Let's grow our knowledge and become experts in our categories without having to rely on other people before us and what they say. Be your own leader. Be confident, data-driven, self-reliant. Say yes to the items that move and leave the rest behind. I like a good challenge, so I want to challenge you guys who've made it this far. If you're new to reselling or the concept of sell-through rate, then my challenge to you is to focus on finding items that have at least a 50% sell-through rate and only pick those up and leave the slow-moving ones behind. Use great titles, price competitively, and you'll start seeing results way quicker and way sooner than if you did pick up the slow-moving items. Remember, we have to choose our hard. We do the hard work first or we do the hard work later. It is a lot easier to pick up bad items that will sit on our store forever that we got for extremely cheap or for free, but we have to work really hard to get them to sell if they even have the capability to sell. But if we challenge ourselves to really dig deep into our categories or our niches and find items that have that 50% sell-through rate or higher threshold, you'll be finding items that naturally have desirability in a not completely saturated market. And those items will be way easier to sell. But if you're an experienced seller or a seasoned seller, then I want to share a pro tip that you can start implementing today if you're wanting to change the trajectory of your eBay store. So we're going to audit your store with this pro tip that I do daily in my own store when I make listings. What you do is you take a frequently picked up item that you source very often, and when you get ready to list it onto your store, go ahead and check your store's marketplace. See if you have lots of listings of that same item and see how many of them have sold within 90 days. You might find that the item that you keep continuing to pick up day over day, week over week, month over month, you might have accumulated like 100 of them onto your store, but in the past 90 days, maybe only 5 of them have sold. That is a great way to audit your items to see if it's just because they're slow selling, maybe they're priced too high, or maybe the listing just needs improvements in general. Or you might find out that the item that you're listing, maybe you can't keep it on your shelves and it just flies off as soon as you list it, which is phenomenal. That's a great place to be in. But maybe you might consider raising the price up a little bit so that way you make a couple more dollars on that sale because you know it will fly off the shelf. But you can keep it the same price if you like it that way. It's just a very easy way for me to see the trends of my store go up and down throughout the years, especially when we're working with clothing. Trends come and go, seasons come and go. So it's a great way to keep the finger on the pulse of your store to make sure we're not bloating up our store with items that used to sell really well but no longer sell. And it will also keep us up to date on what is starting to become very hot selling, and we pick up more of those. It helps keep your store stay fresh and lean, and it doesn't secretly start bloating it up and making it start moving really slowly. So I hope that tip helps you in case you are looking to change the trajectory of your store and lean it up. There is so much more to learn about sell-through rate. It is easy for some sellers to justify skipping over or ignoring sell-through rate because maybe they come up with excuses like, inventory is really hard to come by in my area, or I got it all for free, so if it does sell, and that's a big if it does sell, then it's pure profit. But I want to challenge you if you are already starting to make these excuses for yourself. Don't think about your limitations. Think about your possibilities. If I and many others can do the impossible, so can you. Let's break the reseller narrative and start building fast-selling, profitable eBay stores. There are 2 types of resellers out there: the ones who hope their items sell and the ones who know their items will sell. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye.